one.
Love it. Flares out to the right. Caught over the middle and into.
He's at the 45. Are you kidding? He's going to go.
Already gets hit. The ball is out. And Philadelphia has it.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to NFL Turf Talk, streaming to you live here on DSM Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channel. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you head on over to @DSM_media on Twitter. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. And while you're over on the page, make sure you check out the link tree in our bio. It will take you to every social media platform we are available on. If you guys want to be interactive throughout tonight's show and every show we have running here on DSM Media, make sure you head on over to the YouTube channel specifically. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and it's the best place to get your comments and questions pulled up on the screen here with us. I am one half of your host, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter @DylanJD98. To my right, my co-host Scotty. You can find him as well @ScottyDrown. Week 16 recap, Eagles, Cowboys, full breakdown. My man, what's going on?
What is good, man? What is good? Happy to be back at it, I should say. Happy holidays, everybody, if we didn't catch you before the holiday break there. Nonetheless, got to get into a loss. A little disappointed by that one, but nonetheless, a good weekend. I can't complain. The Sixers are looking well, but sticking to the NFL side of things, we had a couple, upsets, I guess you could say, or little surprises, I guess, mixed in there as well. So it was an interesting weekend, nonetheless, competitive weekend.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think if you look across the slate, whether you want to use the term upset or not, because there wasn't a bunch of, 8, 9, 7-point underdogs that came away with victories this holiday weekend. But there were one, like when you look at the Detroit Lions, when you look at the New York Giants, when you look at the New England Patriots, when you look at the Tennessee Titans, you're looking at a bunch of teams that really can, and Miami Dolphins, really kind of controlling their own destiny here in terms of 2-3 weeks left until the postseason, and getting back to that postseason for the first time in a while with some of these organizations. And they dropped the ball this week, man. But then reversely, you have a team like the Green Bay Packers who, let's see if we can get interesting, man. I gave them a 0% chance last week with you on Thursday to make this playoff run. Now, ultimately, it's step 1 of 3. They have to go out and win the next 2. With a little bit of help outside of them as well. But we'll see if Aaron Rodgers has a little bit of magic left up his sleeve here to wrap up this season. But let's start in Dallas with the Eagles, 40-34. It is not a victory Monday here on DSM with us Eagles fans, but nonetheless, a lot to dive into. Obviously, no Jalen Hurts in this one. Gardner Minshew gets the start. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the 4 turnovers by the Eagles. We're going to talk about Dak Prescott. But ultimately, not only was it a loss, Scotty, multiple losses came from this one. Avonte Maddox and Lane Johnson both out for unknown and lengthy time periods at this point. Lane Johnson's regular season was basically announced over. They're hopeful to have him back for the playoffs, which is another reason why locking up the number 1 seed over the next 2 weeks is very important. Avonte Maddox, regular season over as well, I would assume. CJ Gardner-Johnson is eligible to come off of the IR. However, Nick Sirianni basically hinted at the fact that just because he's eligible doesn't mean he will. So everything's on the table for CGJ at this point, but it doesn't seem like he's trending towards playing this week specifically. So a loss came with a multitude of losses in this one. I know you're still hurting. How are you feeling?
I'm hurting. Obviously, it's not necessarily the fact that we lost. Well, it is that we lost. It's the way that we lost, and the fact that the Eagles should have won this football game, and that's what ultimately hurts me the most about it. We threw this one away, right? We fumbled the bag in a sense. We were down there in Dallas with 10-point leads in this game twice,
multiple times,
2 times in this game, right? And we weren't able to hold on to a lead. Obviously, turnovers, crippling turnovers. The fumbles, you have Miles fumbling the ball back-to-back weeks, right? Fumbled against Chicago, fumbles in Dallas, and hadn't fumbled all season up until these last 2 games. So while the recipe appears to be the Eagles have to turn the ball over 4 times to lose, right? That's the only common denominator between the 2 losses that the Eagles have had. Aside from that, you had 2 different quarterbacks playing in each loss, right? A loss to Dallas, a loss to Washington. But nonetheless, the consistent theme there is turnovers, 4 of them to be specific, 4+ turnovers in each of those games. And most of the time, you're not going to lose or you're not going to win a game whenever you turn the ball over multiple times, let alone 4 times in one game. So while it appears that it just seems like it could be once in a blue moon type of things, right? With 4 turnovers like that, it doesn't happen often. The Eagles haven't turned the ball over as much as the rest of the league in a sense this season, but it's been happening a lot more often the last few weeks. I will say we're in the colder months. So it's a little concerning, obviously, the way the defense, we can get into it, but it's not necessarily that we lost that hurts. It's not that we were supposed to win this game when you look at it preemptively, right? Obviously, we picked them to win this game, but from the outside looking in, they weren't supposed to win this game without their starting quarterback. But the fact that they had the opportunity to, and they had more than an opportunity to win this game and come home with the division in hand already. It's the fact that they weren't able to capitalize on that. That's what hurts the most for me right there.
I agree with you. I think that's the part that really stings a little bit on this one, and partially our fault, right? You go out throughout the week, Jalen Hurts pops up on the injury report. What's happening? He's out. Gardner Minshew gets start. And my initial thought, while I brought this up to you on Saturday, there saw a lot of rah Eagle fans Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Who cares? We're still going to walk in and beat them. And like you said, the Eagles weren't supposed to win this game. The line moved for a reason. You're missing the MVP of the league. You're on the road. You already beat them the first time, but we allowed that rivalry and the holiday and to basically seal our season, seal up the 1 seed division in their house. We allowed it to play too much of a factor, right? And we said, you know what? The Eagles are going to win this game. And then when they show you a glimpse, 10-0 lead, Josh Sweat pick 6, right? They give you another 10-point lead late in the third quarter. They give you this hope and energy where, wow, they're really about to do this. And to have it basically have the rug ripped out from under you very quickly in that fashion, that's what stings the most, right? There's a lot that went on in this game. So I want to try to not get them out chronologically, but I'm going to be jumping all over the place here. You mentioned the turn. That there's a positive within the negative. The positive within the negative is it took everything that the Dallas Cowboys had to beat the Eagles when they played as sloppy as they did with 4 turnovers and a backup quarterback, right? So that's a small positive takeaway from the game. But when you look at the turnovers, you're right, self-inflicted wounds, the same thing that happened against Washington. Miles Sanders fumbles for the second time in back-to-back games, right? Nick
wasn't
Sirianni,
even a big hit, right? Wasn't even
not
a big
at all.
hit.
Hand gets on the ball.
Self-inflicted, man.
You got Nick Sirianni inserts Boston Scott for the first time all game inside his own 25. Him and Gardner Minshew aren't on the same page. Botched handoff there, right? Gives Dallas points. Dallas scored on every single turnover that the Eagles had, right? 2 of the turnovers, interceptions by Gardner Minshew targeting Quez Watkins. I'm going to tell you one thing. I'm done with Quez Watkins. I am done. He's lazy. He's got weak hands. He gave up on both of those routes, allowed a defender to go basically over his back and around him and take the ball from him, not once, but twice. He's lazy. He stops on routes, and he's responsible, probably more so than Minshew in those two situations.
And he is, I think the biggest thing here, he's not a slot receiver, right? He shouldn't be going across the middle making he shouldn't get those targets. That's where I'm at with Quez Watkins. At the very most, Quez Watkins is a backup X receiver on the outside for Devontae Smith if he gets injured. That's when Quez Watkins comes in, runs fly routes. That's all I'm using Quez for, man. You can't rely on him, like you said.
I'm being honest. Zach Pascal probably catches those balls, or at least knocks them down. They're not both picks,
he's more
man.
physical. He's stronger.
It was flat out lazy and a lack of effort from Quez on both of those balls. I agree with you. Even the first one, it wasn't a great throw. It was a little up and away from his body. It allowed.
It's Quez's fault.
Oh,
it's Quez's fault. I'm just saying I'm not going to him in the middle of the field anymore.
100%, man. So you look at the turnovers: Quez, Sanders, Boston Scott. Dallas scores on all of them. So you had those situations, right? Now let's get over to the defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these ones almost hurt more, right?
This was a throwback Jonathan Gannon masterclass at its finest on Christmas Eve.
It's the best way to
He was
put it.
horrible, Scotty. There's no way to put it. And I get it. The game ultimately changed when Avonte Maddox gets injured. They picked apart Josiah Scott. I want to get into that, by the way. When CGJ comes back, I want to talk about what Jonathan Gannon needs to do defensively, because Josiah Scott cannot see the field anymore, especially, down the stretch of the season trying to clinch a 1 seed, right? So, and maybe the postseason. So, I know that happened, but the 3rd and 30, I mean, are you joking? And it's the 3rd and 30. It's the fact that Dak was perfect against your zone. 24 for 24. At some point, Scotty, when it's 13 for 13, 17 for 17, you don't start to think, wow, this isn't working today. You don't start to adjust anything at all.
Dylan, it's not just the 3rd and 30 either. I think that's why it hurts even more, because that happened after some of these other things that happened as well. Like the zone, I'm with you. I mean, I don't understand. I've seen some people come out with the conspiracy theory. You don't want to show them too much before you get to the. Come on, man.
Stop.
Come on, man. No, I'm not letting nobody.
You had an opportunity to win the game. You had an opportunity to win the game. So what?
Yeah, no.
You're putting the win at risk to not show them too much if you meet in the NFC Championship game. You're a clown if you think that.
Yeah, I'm not hearing that, man. This is and this has happened before. This isn't like, this one-off scenario where we play the Cowboys the second time.
That's why it's a classic Jonathan Gannon.
The 4th down penalty, man, on Slay. The 4th down penalty, was that in the first half where it's like it's 4th and 6, something like that. They throw a deep shot. I think that was T.Y. Hilton as well. Gets the holding penalty on Slay. The Maddox unfinished sack gets him wrapped up in the backfield.
Can we talk about that one for a second, though? Because I want to bring that up. I'm not trying to nitpick. And who knows if that changes the game. It could, because they ultimately go on to score a touchdown that drive.
They scored a touchdown. It did change the game.
Scotty, if that's not the definition of in the grasp, I don't know what is. And I screamed it as the play's going. Scott, he had him for 4 seconds. It's not like he got hit, spun around, and got rid of the football. He had him wrapped up, and Dak's looking, and then deliver. Because here's my point. If he's holding his leg, and Hassan Reddick comes in and cleans Dak up around the waist or in his chest, they're throwing a flag for roughing the passer. Like, that's the definition of in the grasp, man. I don't know how you feel about it, but that, and I'm not just saying that now in hindsight. I'm screaming while he's got the ball. Blow the whistle.
Yeah, I mean it's unreal. I just look back at those plays though. That's where I'm at, because after each and every one of those plays,
making play.
Each and every one of those plays, they score a touchdown afterwards. Whether that should have been called down. Maddox should have finished the sack. Whatever the case may be, that play goes on. Play that drive should have been ended right there, right? And then all of a sudden, now you have a pick six and you have a sack from Maddox on a 3rd down. You're getting the ball back. A whole lot of momentum switches there. The 4th down penalty, that speaks for itself. They go on to score a touchdown after that.
The 3rd and 30.
And then
man, my goodness.
That 3rd and 30. I mean, that's I looked at my fiance. I looked at Alexis. I was just like, what? I know she doesn't grasp all of this, but you can see this, right? Like 30 yards on a 3rd down.
I want to get your opinion on this, because obviously it's the coverage, right? It's the zone, and it's Slay passing him off to Josiah Scott, and Josiah Scott's getting beat down the field, and he's not.
Josiah Scott comes down all late and shit. Oh my god, man!
The problem is my uncle brought this up to me yesterday. There was no one in front of. There wasn't a tight end, a receiver slipping underneath with T.Y. Hilton taking the top off. If you're Slay, I know it's the called coverage. Do you really pass him off? And I'm not trying to bash Slay. He had a little bit of a rough day, but and by the way, anybody DMing him and his wife, or you're a clown, by the way. But like, just little things like that, man. Like, I know it's the called coverage. I know it's the system. I ain't passing him off from Darius Slay to Josiah Scott. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and when you get Josiah Scott in, like, is zone really like the easiest transition? You know what I mean? Like, is that like
Right.
the easiest transition for a backup to come in and
Right.
just have that
'Cause you can look
responsibility?
at
Like,
it two
wouldn't it be
ways.
easier to go man on man? Like, I don't
Exactly.
know, man.
You can look
It's
at
weird
it
to
in
me.
two different directions. It would be for Josiah Scott for him to be inserted in this game. If you go man, you run the risk on them exploiting him one-on-one. You leave him on an island. Is he talented enough to keep up? But
Right.
by implementing him into this zone, which okay, you could say he should know the defense. He's had to
Right.
play before the season, but now his mind's instead of just being focused on one guy in man, his mind's going 100. He's got to be here. He's
Looking
got to
at the
take this way. He's got
quarterback,
to,
he's got to know where the
yeah.
court.
So
You know
you
what
can
I
make an
mean?
argument
It's
for
a
both
lot.
sides where they get where
Yeah.
it's a negative to have him in.
Well, at least if you go man to man, you can now have Slay follow CD. Like that, I think that's where
And
that's the
why
most
he's
infuriating
here.
part of it. Yeah, that's the most infuriating part of it. You have Darius Slay and shit. If you don't want Darius Slay to follow James Bradbury, let
More
him
than
follow
capable.
CD Lamb about.
Yeah.
I mean, you have two number one corners that you can throw at number one wide receivers, and somehow play after play, you see Josiah Scott lining up in front of CD Lamb,
Right.
and you already
it's
know what's
why
going to
it
happen.
doesn't make any
You already
sense
know.
because there's no consistency, man. Go back to week 2. He allowed
That makes no
Darius
sense,
Slay to
right?
match up with Justin Jefferson. So
Is
why
CD Lamb not in that cat? Are they tearing off receivers on who they
Right.
follow? Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, it makes no sense to me.
Right, like
CD
CeeDee
Lamb
Lamb
is
doesn't
of
call
that
for
level.
this. Yeah, he doesn't
Yeah,
call for
like
this.
he's no Justin Jefferson. He doesn't need Slay on him. Like,
No.
no, man, come on.
I will
And
say
it's
though,
like did Maddox switch up the whole game plan to where, I mean, I
Right.
get you have full confidence in Maddox, but you have to have a backup plan, man. He's been injured this season already.
Yeah.
Like,
And I'm glad you bring that up because that's why I hinted at what you do going forward. When CJ Gardner-Johnson returns, he immediately goes back to the slot. Immediately. I know this might mess up your future plans, meaning if Howie and everybody's expecting to re-sign him in the offseason, he's going to be your future safety. I get all that. Josiah Scott can't be on the field. And I'm at the point now where Reed Blankenship at safety is less of a negative than Josiah Scott in the slot. And we know that CJ Gardner-Johnson is a top 5, top 3 slot corner in all the National Football League. He transitioned extremely quickly to safety with the interception rate and all that. But I'm putting him back in the slot. I'm starting Reed Blankenship at safety. That's just what I'm doing going forward. This has been fun so far, right? It's almost a game of what hurt the most.
Yeah, at least use him in a versatile manner. I think the problem right now, man, is that you have these guys so pigeonholed, right? Like Kaiser White struggled in this game. This would have been a good game for Nakobe Dean to get some PT. I mean, we could see him at any time during this season. That would be nice. I think these players get pigeonholed into these like roles so much where, okay, this is no longer working. I know we didn't have CGJ in this game, but just going forward, if this is no longer working, if you play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the second round in the divisional round of the playoffs, they have Chris Godwin in the slot. Or if you play the Minnesota Vikings, they have Justin Jefferson in the slot, CD Lamb in the slot, Terry McLaurin in the slot.
Right.
You have to adjust. You have to be versatile. That's like you need to practice that you need to have CGJ. If you want to keep him at safety for some games when it's applicable, that's fine. Have him practice both positions.
When you're playing the New York Giants, I can afford. I'll play him at safety,
right?
But to your point,
exactly.
If I'm going to go play the Dallas Cowboys or I'm going to go play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where you alluded to Chris Godwin, I'm going to switch. Be like
a mismatch. Right?
I don't know why. I don't know why it's so difficult. I really don't, man.
It's okay to adjust to. You know what I mean? Like it's like we sometimes just we're doing it our way.
Yeah,
we're doing it our way, but in the wrong way though. I don't know how to explain that. I'm sorry for even because I don't know how to explain that because it's like they're going to do it their way, but it's not their way, right? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Like their way would be lining up man to man and letting Slay and Bradbury line up against wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. And if you wanted to roll that way and die by it, that's the way to go. But instead, it's the opposite. It's their way. It's zone. It's their way or no way. It's Josiah Scott on the slot or no way. Like
Yeah.
that's the backward stuff that I don't understand, man.
And if we're being upfront and honest, like I know we're going in on JG right now, but that's not to take away from this season. Like we've defended him all year long. The numbers, the defense overall, it tells you the Maddox injury plays a big role. But just the fact that he just purely did not adjust at all. You get the final numbers by Dak. You let him score 40 on you.
You let Dak have a career day.
Yeah.
Like, another career day against the Eagles. Like it's just annoying, man. Like
after he throws a pick six on his first or second throw of the day. Like when he did that, I was just like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And boy, he flipped a switch.
Yeah.
How
much credit do you give to the Cowboys? How much credit do you give to the Cowboys? No. Dak, that offense. I mean, they dropped 40 points, right? It's disappointing.
65? Is that too high?
No, I don't think so.
Like I'm realistic. I'm being serious. I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but you can't ignore the 4 turnovers and to say like this is not the same thing as when the Eagles picked off Cooper Rush 3 times. They took the ball away. Boston Scott dropped a handoff. Miles Sanders cut back, had a fingertip touch the football and let it roll back to his, you know what I mean? So like the interception, sure, but in totality, not to mention Lane's injury, Maddox's injury, no Gardner Johnson, no. So I don't know. Like I'm really not trying to take anything away from him, but
what I've come to the conclusion with this, like this rivalry and between the fan bases, it especially on social media, it's become like such a troll fest. Yeah, it's a troll fest at this point. Like there is no like, oh, we beat you with your backup quarterback and you beat. We're better than you now. Like
because
it's gotten to that point where
it's not just Cowboy fans anymore because like I witnessed a lot of Eagles fans throughout this week. Throw out the gesture and the idea that the Eagles are going to walk in and beat them with Gardner Minshew. And then when we didn't, I'm seeing the same accounts tweet at Cowboys accounts and be like, well, it took everything you had for you. That is true. It did take everything you had, but you were the one coming out all week saying that they were going to beat them regardless with Garner. So it goes both ways. It's not all just Cowboys fans, but one fan base is a bunch of cockroaches, and the others will at least, we're here. I'm here with you, right? Like we have to come here and talk about it. So let's talk about the quarterback because we have not done that yet, and I want to get your thoughts because such an up and down, back and forth kind of day, I feel like, for the backup. In hindsight, in totality, I think he did a good job. He made a couple nice throws. They scored 34. I know one was a pick 6, but they scored 34. They had a chance to win the game. The 2 interceptions, like we said, probably more so on the receiver than it was on Gardner Minshew. Him and Devontae Smith had it going. Goddard, A.J. Brown on the second play of the game. But I'll tell you what I hate. There was some inconsistency, and you could see as the game went forward, Gardner got happy feet. He wasn't stepping up in the pocket and delivering a strong ball. He was backpedaling and throwing off balance, right, because of the pass rush. And then I'll tell you what I hated the most. You get that ball to Devontae Smith on like the inside the 20-yard line, 1st and 10 at the end of the game. 48 seconds left. You call a timeout. Why? You just used your last timeout. There's almost a minute left. You could have got a playoff or whatever. So you call your timeout with 45 seconds left. You're at the 18 or something. There's first downs to pick up. We took a shot to the end zone 3 times in a row. Like as if there was 12 seconds left, Scotty. And we had to run a play in 3. No, I just hated how the game ended. It felt so weak, and the game was so great and so back and forth. It just felt like such an easy cop-out. Like, here we go, 3 shots to the end zone. So unnecessary. You could have picked, like, on first down, you could have dumped it off for 6, got out of bounds. Like, you didn't even try to pick up a first down. You just said, here's the game.
I think what we watched during this game is, Gardner Minshew, he played well. He played average, I guess, or I don't even know because the turnovers, it's like the imbalance there, but he played good for a backup. Like it's just as simple as that, right? He played up to a backup standard, And maybe he can start in this league, and maybe with more time, he wouldn't get happy feet at the end of the game, right? Maybe he would get more confidence and be able to sustain at the end of games. It was his first game as a starter this year, but you can't help but look at that game as an Eagles fan and just think of what would Jalen Hurts do in some of these situations. Like the first drive of the game, they're down in the goal line, and he gets chased down, right, by Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
That's not happening. Jalen Hurts will walk into the end zone literally in that situation.
Jalen Hurts isn't throwing off his back foot in a clean pocket because he's nervous.
Oh, my goodness. There was one, was it Quez Watkins that he had where we settled for 3? He had Quez for a touchdown. Missed him completely, sailed it off his back foot.
He sailed someone else that I think Curse or one of the safeties had a clean pick go right off his chest plate, right? So
yeah, that was later in the game, I think, too. Yeah, so just those little things. And at the end of the game, I know exactly what you're talking about, man. I don't know if that's Gardner Minshew just panicking,
or Sirianni.
Right?
I don't know.
It looked like him panicking at the end of the game, honestly, especially that last play.
Or trying to do too much.
Wide open in the middle of the field, and he just throws it in the end zone.
Right.
It's like he wanted the game to be over, right? Yeah. Like it was weird to me, but I don't know. I felt in between on Gardner, but I guess the only thing that I could say is, this answers the questions of the system, right? That was a completely different offense.
Don't ever question.
Miles Sanders got the ball 21 times. He got 21 carries in this game, and it didn't feel like it felt like we weren't running the football, right? Like still, because we don't have our quarterback that carries it 10 to 15 times a game. So it's honestly a safer way to play, right? Like I think with Jalen Hurts, you just run a safer offense because it is more on the ground. Like I don't know. That's the only takeaway from the quarterback position that I can really have when I'm trying to be fair here. He threw for 355 yards. He threw 2 touchdowns. He had 2 interceptions. He ran for a touchdown. He lost the fumble. Everything like cancels out. And at the end of the day, I just look and I just wish Jalen Hurts could have played. And, I think we win that game. I think it's as simple as that for me. But, yeah, I don't know. What did you think? Like Minshew, do you think he can start in this league? Like,
I mean,
is it even fair to base that off one? You know what I mean?
No,
one performance against the Dallas Cowboys?
He can definitely start in this league, but to what extent? Like there's a spot somewhere for him.
It's not your franchise quarterback,
right? Like I would question, like, what would he look like in Washington? Is Taylor Heineke a better option than him, or do you send him somewhere like Houston? Right? I don't know the answer. Yeah. I don't know where he fits best. The Jets right now, like would he be a better?
He would be better than Zach Wilson,
right? Yeah. Who, by the way, we can get into that later in the show. Is done for the season. Mike White is back, and they demoted Zach Wilson to off the active roster. No, but I think you bring up the everything that this game embodied was how valuable Jalen Hurts is, and whether you're an Eagles fan that still had doubts about him, whether you're an analyst, whether you're a hater because you're a Cowboys fan or a Giants fan or whatever the case may be, you cannot tell me you watched that game and came away with the fact that he is not everything. And I saw a tweet, I forget who was by, and this is the perfect way to put it.
System, man.
It's the perfect way to put it. The team is good. There's a reason they were in the football game on the road with a backup quarterback with other injuries and had 4 turnovers and were still in the game. The team is good.
Yeah.
He makes them special. He makes them great. So that's the difference. And I'll tell you this, does it make a difference if Jalen Hurts plays? Obviously, A. B, but not only for the the rollout where if he gets caught, you're talking about 3 less. Now, I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is perfect in this game. Probably 3 less turnovers because those 2 balls to Quez Watkins probably aren't getting thrown in that area. And the botched handoff to Boston Scott probably isn't getting botched, right? 3 less turnovers. What does that mean? 3 less quick opportunities for Dallas to put up points. 21 less points. I'm not saying that they scored 21 less. I'm not saying Jalen Hurts doesn't throw an interception at some point. I'm just telling you the odds go extreme.
It changes everything. Yeah. I mean, time of possession, right? Running the football changes time of possession. Just giving you more options on certain downs. I mean, maybe it's maybe it's 2nd and 6, and you're thinking I'm going to run the ball with Miles Sanders because Gardner Minshew's in. Maybe in reality, that's the time where you take a deep shot to AJ, right? With Jalen Hurts in the game. So there's just like these little things. Obviously, Gardner Minshew's deep ball isn't that of Jalen Hurts, so we didn't see a ton of those, right? We saw the one to AJ Brown early in the game where he's wide open, but even that one kind of slowed AJ
him
down. It felt like, right? So it's not the little things, I guess. You can't call it the little things. These are big things, but the best way to put it is exactly how you said. He makes this team special, and it's for all those seemingly little things that we mentioned there, the deep ball, the third down opportunities with your legs, and just simply keeping the ball in possession. Like, that's the biggest part of it, right? In like, you look at key parts of this game, we talk about the 3rd and 30 that keeps the ball in Dallas's possession. You talk about the 4th down penalty that keeps the ball in Dallas's possession. You talk about the Maddox unfinished sack, or the sack that didn't get blown dead. That's the Cowboys keeping possession, and they controlled the ball.
Hey, man, I already gave your Cowboys credit. Relax.
I mean, yeah, whatever, dude.
It's
like,
a win,
whatever. It's a loss is a loss, just like you guys came to Philadelphia and lost with Cooper Rush. I like, that's what I mean. There's no meeting in the middle. There's no logical conversations. Don't talk about my Cowboys. We're going to talk about the NFL, and we're going to talk about the Eagles game where they played the Cowboys, because we played the Cowboys this week. It's not Micah Parsons talking about the Eagles before the week that they play. We actually played the Cowboys this week, so we will talk about them. And I hope that we do see you guys in the playoffs, man. I really do, with Jalen Hurts.
We won't, because they'll be out of it before that. But anyway,
I know they'll get booted first round, but
I got a question for you moving forward, though. What's a bigger issue, the loss of Lane or the loss of Avante? And
tough question,
because here's why. Obviously, it's Lane, Avante, but when you're looking at
replacement
coaching level, is it Josiah Scott or is it Jack Driscoll next to that great offensive line? You know what I mean, with Jeff Stoutland. So, like,
I know that's what makes it interesting, because easily you could say Lane Johnson's a bigger loss than Avante, but I trust Jeff Stoutland more. I trust Jack Driscoll a little bit more. We've seen him in action, right? Mostly at guard, switching around. He's been versatile on the line, to say the least, I guess. But who do I trust more? I trust Jeff Stoutland. I trust Jack Driscoll, who I've seen in big moments before. But at the same time, this team is known to struggle when Lane Johnson is out. Like, even in previous years without Jalen Hurts, when it's Carson Wentz, when it's when Lane Johnson is not on the right side of that line, it just creates, I don't know if it's a level of insecurity for the quarter. You know what I mean? It's like, well, when Jason Kelce first leaves this team, it may take some time for Cam Jurgens to come into himself and fill that role, and for the rest of that team to have confidence in that replacement. And I feel that's the same thing for Lane Johnson. Jack Driscoll can be as good as he possibly can be replacing and filling in for Lane Johnson. But at the end of the day, you're not going to be as comfortable as you usually are with Lane Johnson in there.
Yeah. Here's a little info from my man Hembo. Eagles without Lane Johnson since 2020. 3-10. Averaging 21.6 points per game. Now, Eagles in 2020 with Carson Wentz, and Eagles in 2021 with Jalen Hurts rookie year, no AJ Brown. The offenses are on completely different stratospheres. So I don't know if the drop-off is going to be that severe, right? And you just have to hope that you win this week, and we'll get into that later on in the week. You take care of New Orleans. Everybody gets the rest of the next week. Everybody gets the rest of the week after that. You get to watch some playoff games from home. And now we'll see if these guys can come back and be productive in the divisional round. Anything else before we move on to the rest of the slate this weekend?
No, man. I think, you don't have to panic yet, right? Let's see what Jack Driscoll looks like in filling in for Lane before we just totally flip out and say that they're going to lose to the Saints. I've already seen people say, we better win against the Saints. Like, yeah, we better win, and we should win against the Saints, even without Lane Johnson. Let's relax for a second. Let's see what this team looks like. But yeah, I would say at the same time, while I caution not to panic, there is a level of urgency that does need to come with this loss. It's a game you gave away. This is a game where you did have 2 10-point leads in this game. You blew those 10-point leads consecutively. And now you do have to go out and get a W in the last 3 weeks. That one was, I'm not going to say it was given to you and you gave it
there,
back.
though.
It's not like that, but
there.
it was there for you to take and get it out the way. You did not do that. So now we do have to go into these next weeks with a little bit of urgency. If you get the win against New Orleans, you don't have to worry about New York, but we got to start week by week, right? And they've been doing that. I have no concern that they won't have their mind fully focused and ready to go. I know they're ready to bounce back already. You saw the way they were talking after the game. Guys were really upset about what transpired out there.
And they get to come back home, man. Let's not forget about that.
Come back home.
You're talking
That's
a
big part of
holiday
it, too.
after a 3-game road stretch, right? So now
Yeah.
you finally get to come back home. You end the season at the Link for the final 2 weeks, and then hopefully have playoffs without the Eagles. I ideally will not have to travel again for the rest of the season as long as
To
they
the
win
Super
one
Bowl.
of the next 2, correct?
If they make the Super Bowl. But.
Yeah. It's a very good point. All right, looking at the rest of the slate on Saturday and then the 3 games yesterday, man, I want to ask you a question. Which team or teams set themselves apart or took a step backward to you? And, you look at the surging Detroit Lions, control their own destiny, this offense, this defense. They lose 37-23 in Carolina. Yep. You look at the Giants Vikings. I thought this was a perfect time for the Vikings to bounce back. Giants extremely hurt. This game comes down to the wire, right? You look at a team, the Titans are just in a complete free fall. You look at the Miami Dolphins, Green Bay Packers. And I think these two are basically what I'm setting you up for. The Dolphins are a team that took 18 steps backwards, and the Packers are a team that took a step forward, right? Because Miami's in trouble, dude. Now, Tua enters concussion protocol again this season.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if he plays this week. 4 losses in a row. Tua throws 3 straight interceptions on 3 straight possessions to end the football game. They blew a 20-10 lead at home against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. That, to me, the Miami Dolphins are the team, to me, that really took a step backwards this weekend and make you question, A, will they even make the playoffs at this point? And B, are they the team that we saw start off 5-1, the explosiveness? Because quite frankly, you haven't seen it. Waddle had an 80-yard touchdown yesterday. Yeah. It didn't matter. It didn't really play an effect on the game.
Yeah, I mean, when you ask me who do I think has taken a step forward, I don't know that anybody really took a step forward this week. Okay. I mean, the Packers won, but I would say the Dolphins gave them that game, quite honestly. Tua gave them that game. It's a bunch of teams taking a step back this week for me. You look at the Titans, as you mentioned. They have no shot, right? That's the Jags division to lose at this point. The Miami Dolphins, sure, the Green Bay Packers win. They keep themselves alive. We'll see how that goes. They take on the Minnesota Vikings at home this upcoming week. But the Miami Dolphins, man, come on. 4 in a row. Tua looks like a shell of himself as far as what we saw earlier this season. Looks more like the Tua that we saw the last couple seasons, right, where everybody was calling him a bust. But those last few throws, especially the last 2 interceptions, you're just sitting there watching. I'm watching as a non-biased fan. Who the hell are you throwing the ball to? Where are you going? Like, I don't even know what Tua is doing out there. No. So, like, I'm seeing Mike McDaniels on the hot seat now. And I mean, you drop 4 in a row and get totally booted out of the playoffs. I mean, that can happen. This is a guy we were talking about, potential coach of the year just 4 weeks ago, right? So they've taken a major step back, right? Mm-hmm. You give up 26 points to the Green Bay Packers. Now, mind you, the interceptions don't make it easy on your defense. Defense actually played a little bit tougher than previous weeks, but still just not able to put it together. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man, step back even with a win, man. I'm so sick of this team. Like, I laid that FanDuel boost. I laid the FanDuel boost, Tom Brady 200+ yards and Tampa Bay win. I thought that was like my safest play of the day, and no, I'm sweating till the end, man. I'm sweating till overtime. Because it takes overtime to beat Trace or whatever the hell his name is, McSorley. It's ridiculous, man. So I think the Bucs took a step back, even with a win. How can you trust them against anybody, let alone the Carolina Panthers, who just caused Detroit. I have to take a step back with Detroit. I don't know that Detroit took a step back. I need to take a step back because they got ran through, bro.
Yeah.
Like
Literally.
43 carries for Carolina, 320 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns from their
Dude,
running
they
backs.
had 160 in the first quarter.
Like, make that make sense. They can't stop the run. So there goes your answer to Detroit. Minnesota, you should have just ran Dalvin Cook till you couldn't anymore. Like, that's the key. So Detroit, I think they took a step back. New York, Minnesota, I told you that game looked weird to me going into it.
I think it just makes me question Minnesota more.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Because you see the way Super Bowl teams have handled the Giants as of late when they're injured. You see the Eagles manhandle them. You see a Cowboys team beat them up, right, and win by double digits both times. Like, you see these things, and then you get to Minnesota, and it takes a 61-yard field goal to do the trick. Like, just doesn't make sense.
And I mean, the Minnesota Vikings, they're like the weirdest team. They're like the weirdest 11-3 team that I've ever seen in my life. Like, so many close calls, comebacks with this team. It's absolutely ridiculous. And there's an argument for both sides of this where maybe these close calls make them tougher in the playoffs to out them, right? They're tough to beat because they have had so many close games. But on the other side of it, you have seen them get dog walked by certain powerhouses in the NFL. So the Vikings are a weird team. You had Cincinnati, who was up 22-0 on the New England Patriots in New England, somehow allow them to come back in this game. Joe Burrow throws a pick six. Even though he goes 40 for 52, 375 yards, 3 passing touchdowns in this game. I mean, Cincinnati is traveling to they have Buffalo coming to them in Cincinnati next weekend. So that's obviously going to be a showdown that may end up determining who wins the AFC or who gets that number 1 seed in the AFC. I'm interested to see what Cincinnati looks like in that game because it almost feels like Cincinnati, while they're on this long win streak, they're like due for a loss. It's like they're playing towards a loss right now. You had them go down 17-0 against Tampa Bay Buccaneers the week before. They come back, win that game. Then this week, the complete opposite. They go up 22-0, almost lose this game.
3 yards away
it seems like they're 3 yards away from a loss. So maybe they bounce back and not bounce back. They won the game, but maybe they come and show up against Buffalo at home next week. Lord knows the Bengals do always show up in big games, so I won't doubt them that far, but it almost feels like they're due for a loss.
That is true, man. In other news, I agree with you. Those are the games and the teams, I would say, in the playoff run for the wild card that just continue to be underwhelming. And then you go back to Thursday night, Jacksonville comes away with that impressive win they needed against the Jets in New York. Tennessee, man, loses at home to the 1-win Houston Texans at that point. Man. Tennessee, you're cooked.
Done.
Season over. Jags
Henry
winning
had
that
a game.
division.
Henry had a game. You know what I mean? What else can you do?
They're done. The Raiders Saturday primetime to wrap up Christmas Eve. I don't even know. That was one of the worst football games I've ever watched. Devontae Adams has 2 catches for 15 yards. Derek Carr throws 3 interceptions in the second half. I don't know what to make of that team. Yeah, like he's gone. That team has a lot of talent. I don't know when Josh McDaniels is going to be fired. You stay within the division. Yesterday, finally, the straw that broke the camel's back. Nathaniel Hackett is out, fired, relieving duties in Denver after they give up 51 to Baker Mayfield. Scotty, I took the under in this, under 36, one of the lowest totals in NFL in a long, long time. Baker Mayfield versus Russell Wilson comes out. There's 2 interceptions on the first 2 drives, one of which is a pick 6. He's terrible. They bench him. Ripien comes in. But, like, that's not even the problem. What did Denver, like, to me, this was just the ultimate slap in the face. They gave up on their coach. They wanted their coach gone. That defense don't give up 51 to no one. And you're telling they give up 51 on Christmas Day to Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, unreal.
You want to talk about giving up on and quitting on your head coach.
And you talk about benching Taylor Heineke. Why did Wentz come into this game?
I didn't even see that.
You didn't know that Wentz came in? Wentz came in
No.
the fourth quarter after 2 consecutive turnovers by Taylor Heineke.
Oh, I'm
Taylor
looking at it.
Heineke gets benched in this game.
Carson goes
Wentz,
12 of 16 for
yeah.
123 and a tutty. Uh-oh, maybe there's life with with Commander Carson.
They don't know who the starter's going to be in week 17. That's from Ron Rivera. I read that earlier
Wow.
today.
Dude,
What's
he's
up,
going to
Dan?
go back
Thanks
to
for checking
Carson.
in, man.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe I missed this. Well, I mean, it was
Against
on
the
the same time
49ers too,
as
man.
the as the
Yeah, we
Eagles
were
on,
going through
so.
a little bit of heartbreak at the time, so I
It's
think it's
very
fair
true.
you may have missed that one.
It's very true,
But
man.
nonetheless, yeah, Heineke gets benched, and I don't know. Do you go back to Wentz in the next one, or do you go back to Heineke? They've both been benched this season, right? So you can't go
It
wrong
is
either way.
interesting. I don't want to seem like I'm coming to his defense, but you almost kind of have to go back to Carson, do you not? Because he is what you invested in a little bit, right?
You've
Heineke,
lost 3 in a row, 4 in a row.
Heineke, you know this movie. You've seen this ending before. You've read this book. He's the guy that hasn't been able to get the job. He's the reason you had to bring in Carson Wentz, right? So you know this story. I'm not saying you don't know the ending of Carson's story, but
I mean,
maybe, I don't know.
let me take a look at the playoff. Like, are they even going to make the playoffs? You know what I mean?
At
Like at this point,
7-1. Let's take a look here, okay?
who do they play next? They play Cleveland next.
We
So,
get to the
they could beat
conference.
them.
Bang, bang, bang. I mean, Scotty, they're still sitting in the
still in
7th
it.
seed at this point, and they're 1 game behind the 6th seed with the Giants. So, yeah, and when you look behind them, you have Seattle and Detroit, who are coming off losses as well, and Green Bay would have to win out. So, because obviously they beat Green Bay earlier in the season. So, yeah.
Interesting, man. Interesting.
Yeah.
And Tampa Bay 7-8. They have I believe they have a big showdown. Yeah, against Carolina this weekend. So
That would be hilarious. That would be so
oh my
fun.
God. Don't let, because Carolina has the tiebreaker. They already beat Tampa Bay. So if they beat them again, they have tied records. Carolina gets
How
the nod.
funny would that be? And I got a question for you. If you're
that would be
Carolina,
hilarious.
if you're Carolina, what did you have a fire sale for? Like, not that you're winning it. Like, even if you win the division, obviously we know the Carolina Panthers aren't
Maybe
going
you
anywhere,
just
but,
needed
like,
to fire your coach. Maybe you didn't need to.
yeah, I don't. Did you
sell
need
the
to
farm.
trade Christian McCaffrey? Did you need to, go through 4 different quarterbacks? Like,
Needed to just start Sam Darnold, who you started last season, right? Like, maybe you just didn't need to overthink this. We
100%
thought
true,
Carolina looked solid coming into the season. It was surprising to see them kind of sell out so early, but I mean, they were losing games, and
I
Steve
think when
Wilkes
you
comes
look at
in
a
and
team
he
struggle
kinda
so badly
turns
record
them
wise, you
around.
forget the strong suits they have. They have a pretty good defense.
Yeah,
And that was the one thing
solid.
we didn't take into consideration. So if they just helped out offensively,
Yeah.
that also is true. The Panthers,
Fair.
I think they were expecting Tampa Bay to take over this division a little earlier. But look, man,
New
let's
Orleans
get into
Saints
this.
maybe have some life.
That's this weekend, man. This
We'll
weekend,
see,
gotta
right?
see.
We'll
Also,
see. We'll get to talk
all
about
of a
that.
sudden they went from a top 4 draft pick to hopefully they stay top 10 for the Eagles. So that's also another reason the Eagles need to take care of business this weekend.
We can definitely help them towards that for sure.
Speaking of Eagles, former Eagle and Super Bowl champion Nikki Sixx gets the start tonight in Indy.
Hell yeah.
Taking on Justin Herbert and the Chargers. The Colts are done. Their season's over. Jonathan Taylor done for the year. Obviously, they bench Matt Ryan. They don't even go back to the kid. They go straight to Nick Foles. The Chargers are starting to surge. They're getting healthier. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen have been back for a couple weeks now. They're getting Austin Eckler involved, especially in the receiving game. The defense getting a little healthier. What do you like in this one? We're going to get to best bets in just a second, but do you think the Chargers take care of business tonight, or does Nick Foles have some magic left?
This one's interesting, believe it or not. I know the Colts are 4-9-1. Chargers only 3.5 point favorites, even though they are on the road. I think that's a little short, but the Colts have played teams tough this year, right? We watched them go 33-0 against the Minnesota Vikings. So maybe Jeff Saturday's thoughts are, get Nick Foles in there, and maybe if we have the ability to build a 33-0 lead, I don't think he hurts that, but maybe he helps us be able to keep a lead like that as well. Maybe it just helps the offense in general, right? You want to see what you got with Nick Foles. It is interesting going old over young, right? Just to see what Sam Ehlinger has, like, at all. Yeah, Nikki Pixie. Yeah, I agree there, Dan. Like, I was gonna say maybe you're trying to see what you have in Nick Foles, but like,
Nah,
I'm not going
there's
into
no
next
way.
season with Nick Foles as the
No.
guy. So that's not what you're doing here. From my understanding, Jeff Saturday is playing with all intents to win. I don't think that they even have their first round pick. I would have to look into that to see if the Colts even have their first round pick, because I'd imagine you would want to lose out if you were in this situation. But
Let me
from
look.
my understanding, everything I've been reading, Jeff Saturday has full intent on going all out to get the W, which is why you're seeing him go with Nick Foles. Feels that he gives him the best chance to win. But yeah, I think the Chargers take care of business tonight.
They
Do
had
they
their
have their
first round pick. Yeah. They're
Okay,
slotted. They're slotted in the
interesting.
5 spot at the moment.
Interesting. So
New
maybe he's
Orleans
just
is
speaking
down at
to the
10.
media that way. Maybe Nick
Yeah.
Foles is actually your tank machine. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, Nick Foles gets to start. It's a last-ditch effort. That's what we can call it for the Indianapolis Colts here. The Chargers, they need to win this to make the playoffs. They should take care of business, right? Even in Indy, this is a team where they seemingly have nothing left to play for this season. Their stars out, right? Starting quarterback's benched. Justin Herbert has all his weapons back. Eckler's healthy. Herbert's healthy. We just want to see the Chargers make one more stab at us taking them serious, right? Like, every time they're in a go-ahead situation like this, it seems like they flop. It seems like the Chargers could go ahead and lose to Nick Foles in the Indianapolis Colts here in Indy tonight, just enough to blow their playoff chances again, right? It feels like they could. That would be same old Chargers to me. But I'm going to give them the nod here. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, a healthy Justin Herbert, healthy offense. I do think the Chargers take care of business tonight. They need to, man. Like, when are they going to make the playoffs if they don't make it this time? When you're getting the Colts like this lined up for you, you can potentially lock up a playoff spot just by winning tonight, getting to that 9-6 mark. I'm going to go with the Chargers, but I'm going to say I'm not. I'm about 70-30, 75-25 on it, man. And I should.
The Chargers are just about, I believe if they win tonight, they lock up a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Because of how much everyone else has fallen off. The Jets have fallen off, the Patriots have fallen off, Miami's fallen off. When at one point we thought, oh my God, could 3 AFC East teams make the playoffs? It's looking more and more likely that only the Bills might make the playoffs after they were in third place a couple weeks ago, right? So we'll see what happens there. I agree with you though. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt as well. I think you've seen a rejuvenated Justin Herbert, and oddly enough, Brandon Staley, the play calling has been a little better ever since Keenan Allen has come back. There's something to look for tonight, though. You talk prime time, you talk on the road. Could be a classic Brandon Staley type of mind-boggling night, right? Take you 3 points when take 3 when they should go for it on 4th and 1. Go for it on 4th and 5 when they should try to take 3, right? Just time management issues. So we'll see how they come out. I ultimately have a lot of trust in Justin Herbert at the moment. Really since that one-on-one matchup with Tua a few weeks back, he's kind of just been resurgent and has been really, really good. Now I know they squeaked by Tennessee last week, but he led a game-winning drive for Dicker the kicker to come in.
Win's a win. Hey, we know that better than anybody. Win
yes,
is a
we
win.
do, man. With that being said, Scotty, what are our best bets for the night? We have 3 of them.
Best bets of the night. So I know Dan, I know you said the pixie dust has ran out. We're going to believe in it one more night tonight. Indy's going to let Nicky Six go after it tonight.
Air it out.
Big Dick Nick back on the field in Indy. We got Foles over 228.5 passing yards at -110. We're going with the over. We're going with
I'll tell you what, that's
the
not
Nicky
even
Six,
pixie.
right? He
Yeah,
lets
that's
that
not
shit
even
fly,
magic.
though, man.
Yeah,
He lets it fly, dog.
he could throw for
that's the main thing with Foles.
230. He could throw for 230 in a 14-point loss. You know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily magic, but I do believe they're going to get down. I do believe he's going to throw the ball a decent amount.
As an Eagles fan, it feels like magic because I have a special place in my heart for Nick Foles. So I'm going to ride it out with him tonight at minus 110, over 228 passing yards. The next one we're going to roll with is the Eckler receiving yards. So over 35 and a half receiving yards at minus 110. You can honestly go receiving yards or receptions for Eckler in this one. Both trends are trending the right way. His receptions are over 4.5 at minus 136. So the juice is on the yards. Either way, last 3 out of 4, last 4 games, 3 of them, he has had north of 5 receptions, north of 55 receiving yards. So I'm loving the trend there with Eckler over 4.5 receptions and over 35.5 receiving yards. And then the final play that we have for you tonight, as well as Eckler, the trends are going the right way for Keenan Allen as well since his return. We have Keenan Allen over 5.5 receptions at minus 156. And he has done that the last 4 games Yes, I have it pulled up here. He's done that the last 4 games that he's been back from injury. Obviously, he's been back. Give us a bold plus play. Hey, a bold plus play. I don't know. I didn't go bold tonight. Do you got one? I didn't go
got
bold
one
tonight
for
with
you.
this game.
Ready for this? My little free bet. Hold on. Got to find it. Because I can't remember the odds, but I know they're crazy.
Let me see if I put in something weird tonight.
DeAndre Carter, anytime touchdown score tonight, plus 1,000.
I don't mind because he can score in he's a multifaceted
He's got
player,
3 on the
special
year.
teams,
He hasn't had
rushing,
one in
receiving.
5 weeks. Spread out. It's kind of on pace. Monday Night Football. Someone weird's getting in the end zone, man. It's not going to be all of Eckler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. There's going to be someone that gets in there. It's the backup tight end, Donald Parham or whatever. Maybe he gets in. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Sony Michel sees the field for the first time in a couple weeks and he gets in from the 1. But I'm rocking with DeAndre Carter. It's not like he's got none on the year. He's got 3. So maybe he's in the end zone.
He was explosive while that's a good point as well, Dan. He's explosive, and he actually did well during the time when Keenan Allen was out, Mike Williams out. They were down quite a few of their receivers, so reliable nonetheless. I actually like that play a lot at plus 1,000 because he's used in multi-facets: rushing game, receiving game, special teams.
Yeah,
so he has multiple opportunities.
Maybe he breaks off a little punt return tonight.
Absolutely. I did the only wild, I guess it's not even that wild. It's not even as wild as that touchdown score, but I did go with the PMI boost on FanDuel. So Austin Eckler and Deion Jackson to each score either 1 receiving touchdown or 1 rushing touchdown. So each starting running back score a touchdown. It was at plus 700. I laid a few beans on it. But that's probably the craziest I went tonight. Threw a little bit of beans on Foles over 1.5 touchdowns. It was in the plus territory, so I threw a little bit on it. But
I got a question.
We'll see how that goes.
If DeAndre Carter takes back a kick return for 6, am I getting credited with that, or is that
we have to look that up, man? We have to look that up because I have
special teams.
I've wondered that because there's this guy Marcus Jones, I think, for the Patriots. He scored on offense and defense and special teams. So it's like, I don't know, like. I've wondered that because even in fantasy, like, does you still get the points on special teams for the defense? So is it the same way? Like, can you win the anytime touchdown when you have defense special teams? Or if you have DeAndre Carter? You know what I mean? Like, if you pick either one, do you win that no matter what if it's him that scores on special teams? I don't know. It's a weird one, man.
It is interesting, man. But I thought about it. Like, look at the Eagles, right? Boston, you can pick, but I guess just because not a lot of guys are available to pick that play special teams, and obviously no one that just plays defense gets it. But it's like, Boston Scott's available to pick for the Eagles. If he returns a kickoff, that should count as a Boston Scott anytime touchdown. Because all it's defined as on the sports book is the person who crosses the goal line with the ball. So it doesn't say on offense.
Yeah. So
know
it
what I mean?
should. It should. I was wondering the same thing because I laid Jamal Agnew for
Okay.
Jacksonville in Thursday night game last week, and because he had good odds, and he's the same type of player, like special teams, rushing,
Yeah.
receiving. And I was wondering if he scored on special teams, like would that count?
Right.
So I don't know.
Hopefully, we at least
Eckler
find out tonight.
two TDs. I like
That's an
that as
interesting
well,
play.
man.
Yeah, by himself, I think he's at like minus 140, 130 to score tonight. But the 2+ is
I have
interesting.
I have an Eckler play here. So I went with Nick Foles 200 plus passing yards, Eckler
Okay.
over the 35.5, and I went with an Eckler touchdown. That got me to plus 308. So I mean, there's a couple different ways. I like all the Eckler plays. I think he does get in the end zone
Yeah.
tonight. 2 TDs if you're feeling that.
I
mean,
like his
especially if you
receptions
have
as
him in
well.
fantasy. Yeah, I wouldn't even shy away from it, man. I haven't been fantasy myself, so I like Eckler
Like it, man.
tonight.
All right, guys, that is going to wrap up this Monday edition of NFL Turf Talk here on DSM Media. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you head on over to @DSM_media on Twitter. You hit that follow button. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. And while you're on the page, you can check out the link tree in our bio to take you to every platform we are available on: IG, TikTok, Facebook, Twitch. We're everywhere. But most importantly, if you want to be interactive throughout tonight's show, like Dan is, make sure you head on over to the Facebook, or more specifically the YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. We are 7 subscribers away from the 700 mark. That's one of our goals here, so help us out. It's free, obviously, and it's the best place to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up on each and every show. For myself, for Scotty, for DSM Media, have a great rest of your Monday night.
Go Bird.
And one-on-one.